Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Hope you're going to have a good time. I'm struggling to try to convince people to come to the show because YouTube doesn't really send notifications as it used to. If by any chance you like the show, then please, share it around. Just share it on your Discord, share it on your Twitter, share it as much as you can. You would be doing me a great service if you are a lonely person without any friends, or your friends wouldn't appreciate this type of show, then please click the subscribe button and click the thumb up button. You can still help out because the algorithm might actually get a little boost. We're going to unpack it a little bit later, Julie. We're going to be talking about, and I think I'm going to make this into a trend. I'm going to be discussing a little bit of the things that I didn't cover on my main video. And I'm looking at this, and I find it very hilarious because I speak with a couple of developers from various companies. When you get a channel with 100,000 subscribers, you eventually manage to get in touch with a couple of people in high places. And they told me the exact same thing when it comes to drawing women. And it's the fact that for a while, there was this ideology, this feminist ideology, which said that women can do everything that a man can do, right? So there's literally no difference whatsoever. They're completely identical. But it kind of looked odd when you make games with a woman that looks half the size of a man. She's very petite looking, and she has to fight in melee combat with orcs and enemies that are very buffed and muscular, the type of enemy that would hospitalize a soldier with one punch. And because of that, the developers themselves, they looked at the women that did the motion capture, the actresses, and they said that, okay, this cannot do, so they started injecting masculinity into them. This is literally what happened to Alloy. If you watch my video, you know that the actress, she looks gorgeous, but the developer himself, which is a feminist, and his purpose to create this game was to empower women, had to masculinize, I guess, the facial features and give her broad shoulders in order to make her more buff and more masculine, which kind of comes back to the end of the horseshoe, going from an ideology that women can do everything that a man can do. Now it's literally well, yeah, but they need to have some testosterone pumped into them, strong jawlines, broad shoulders, give them the masculine facial features and the expressions in order for them to be able to do what a man can do, because otherwise it doesn't look realistic. And this is the game developer saying this. Okay, this is not me saying this. This is not something that I came up with. I personally like to play these games because they're fictional, alright? If you're going with a video game which is fictional, I don't mind if you make it cool. I guess it depends the type of game, right? If it's a World War simulator or a historical game, then yeah, you need to have some realism. But if you're going to have women going up and fighting in melee combat with people that are holding swords twice their size, I don't mind. Just go for the coolness factor at that point. Just try to make the game cool in order to please the people who buy it. But it's very hilarious. And there's even another thing which bothers me. I spoke with an artist that worked at Blizzard, and the artist who worked at Blizzard, every time he would draw a character, he tried to look at the lore, and he tried to fit that character in a universe with every little detail, every little aspect that the character was getting. And right now, it doesn't really make sense when you look at what the current artists are doing. So the current artists, they, for example, if you look at the new Diablo game coming out, Diablo 4, right? You have the Mount Ariatu, which is considered to be the tallest peaks, the highest place in Sanctuary. And it's also the coldest place. And within the peaks of Mount Ariatu, you have a tribe of barbarians that are very hardened people. They walk bare-chested, but it's just they suffer the cold and they don't mind. And this is when the promotional trailer shows the barbarians from Mount Ariatu as being people of color, as being black. So you have in this world of Sanctuary, the people from the North Polar Express having dark skin. And then when you look at Lut Golain, which is supposed to be the desert, the hottest place in the Sanctuary, you have white people there, which shows me that the artists don't really care about the lore because they're not focused on that. Now, I don't think that this is a big deal, okay? Like, this is just a very, very small detail. You know, it gets overlooked. I wouldn't even notice if the artist at Blizzard wouldn't have told me about it. But the thing is, it's like these little details would come together and create a powerful immersion, which is what all Blizzard games used to have. And you don't get to have this anymore. You don't get to have this immersion because all the resources are focused on pushing ideology, on pushing activism. They're not using the resources and the focus on making an enjoyable and entertaining game anymore. So that's one of the bad things, I guess. Let's see. They want the tomboy girlfriend, but they have no idea how to do story or character. Like, no. It's not even like they want the tomboy girlfriend, because you can have a lot of tomboy girlfriends that look feminine. I mean, look at Japanese animation. Uzaki-chan is the perfect representation of the tomboy girlfriend. Lara Croft, I would consider her to be a tomboy girlfriend. I mean, there's a lot of characters within video gaming that are tomboys. You don't need, just because a girl is tomboy, she doesn't need to look androgynous. And that's the main take that I have from this. You know, like they keep making characters look androgynous because, I don't know, like maybe this is just my hypothesis, but they consider it edgy when they create art that's not beautiful. Like, for some reason, it's edgy if the art isn't beautiful, given the new Western ideology. So femininity being beautiful, they want to move away from it. So they just want to create things that are dull, plain looking, or downright ugly. That's my take. I mean, the whole woke ideology believes there is no such thing as good art, because they believe art is subjective. And because they believe art is subjective, then that means that you don't have an artist that's better than another artist. Because all art is subjective, right? Like, all artists can be interchangeable. The Picasso versus the 5-year-old, they all create art, so it doesn't really matter. Which means that when you are in one of these corporations, the only way to get yourself promoted, to get yourself ahead, is either through nepotism, like you happen to know a guy that knows the boss, or by digging the people at your company. So you find that your colleague, which is setting himself up for a promotion, is saying something very offensive on Twitter 10 years ago. And you use the Twitter drama in order to get them fired so you can have a better chance at the promotion. And that's why, like, these companies don't have as much talent as they used to, because talented people cannot survive in such an industry that's all about drama and connections and nepotism. It's not really like how video games used to be made back in the day, with 4 people in a garage just pouring their heart and soul into a video game that they would enjoy playing, and thus the fans would enjoy playing as well. It's beauty itself that's a threat to social constructionism. I don't know. I'll make a video sometime, like, talking about this thing where they constantly say that art is subjective, because, yeah, I mean, there is some truth to it. I mean, that is the truth that art is subjective, but let me show you something, okay? Because I think there is more to it. So, for example, right? Would you hang this painting on top of your bedroom wall? You know, would you put this painting in your room? I mean, it's art, right? It looks art. It's got pretty colors. Maybe some people would put this in their room. I don't know. But chances are, like, the overwhelming amount of people, like probably 9.9 out of 10 people, would not hang this on their bedroom wall. Like, if you had the option to decorate an entire wall to look like this, you'd probably say no, right? How do I know this? Like, why do I know that? Just, am I a mind reader? Like, am I reading in your head? Now, let's take something else, all right? You would probably consider using this painting in your bedroom, right? You'd probably, like, if you get this as a gift from someone you like, you wouldn't be against putting it up in a frame on top of your bedroom. Why is it? Why is it? Now, I think that the reason this might be ingrained in us. Like, we look at these pictures and we say, yeah, you know, like, this is beauty, this is beautiful, it's a picturesque setting. Someone explained it to me that colors like green, for example, represent life. So does blue, and, you know, like, we look at it and it's like, it's a nice place to live in. I don't know why, okay? I'm not going to say why. Now, there is, like, subjectivity. A person might say that this picture is more beautiful than this picture. You know, they're both beautiful, but, like, someone might say, well, yeah, but this is better than this. Alright? But no one would say that the garbage, the picture with the garbage, is a lot better than this. So there is more of a discussion to be made. Right? Like, there is some type of art, because they're all art. I mean, you know, it's still photography. You photograph the garbage and whatnot. Still art, but, like, some art is something that people are willing to pay for. Other art is something that people aren't willing to pay for. Like, some art is something that people are willing to watch and admire, and other art is something that disgusts people. Now, you can put in a video game art that disgusts people, but, like, unless it's got, like, a really good place within the story and the gameplay, why would people then pay 60 euros just to be disgusted? You know, people don't want to be disgusted. It's not something that's desirable if you want to sell a product. So yeah, like, the idea that they're pushing that all art is subjective, okay? Like, you can't criticize art, none whatsoever. There is no criticism. Does it account the fact, okay, well, why do some paintings belong in a museum and others don't? Why do some paintings cost $100 and others cost $10,000? Because it's subjective, right? Like, you shouldn't be able to price it. Why is it that the people who say all art is subjective only come up when someone criticizes the art? Like, if I go to a social justice game and I say, you know what, I think Alloy is the most beautiful female character in all video game history, you're not going to have the same people that say art is subjective come out, I don't know, V, it's subjective, like, your opinion is subjective. No, like, no one will complain, right? But if you say Alloy looks like shit, you're going to have a lot of people coming up from the woodwork going, like, oh my god, don't you know it's subjective, it's subjectivity. And by the way, like, this creates a lot of useful idiots. Like, if you genuinely believe that all art is subjective, like, everything is subjective, you can't make a comparison, right? So, for example, let me just give you. All right. So for example, you believe that this, you know, looks just as good as an anime. Like, this looks just as good as Mikasa from the first season of Attack on Titan. Like, there's no difference. It's just interchangeable. You know, like, you're like, meh. Then you deserve this type of art. You really do. Like, you deserve all this shit being put into your games and video and entertainment. This is just cheap to make. That's why it looks like this. It's cheap to make. They can make it a dime a dozen, and they're saving money. Okay? They're saving money at the expense of your entertainment. They think you don't deserve more. They think that you're happy with this garbage. This is the fast food of the art industry. Right? But it gets even worse. It gets even worse because I saw a piece of an invisible art, like, that's how they called it, an invisible art, being priced at $100,000. Like, this happened, I believe, in the US during the pandemic, right? When people are being unemployed, the city hall commissioned an art, which is an invisible painting, and they paid the artist $100,000. So this is now going into scam territory. And the way it works, like, the way you can use art in order to scam people, is, first of all, you need an army of useful idiots that say all art is subjective and they don't complain whatsoever. Secondly, you, let's say, are Jeff Bezos and you want to skim on taxes. Well, you commission an art piece, you commission someone to, I don't know, put a banana on the floor, okay? And then you get an art expert to value that art at $200,000. And then you donate that piece of art to some charity. You donate it to a city hall, you donate to something. All of a sudden, oh, tax exemption. You get a tax exemption of $200,000 because you donated an art piece that's valued at to some NGO or to some art university or some city hall or whatever, right? So that is one way they can skim money. Another way is, let's say I'm a mayor and I want $100,000 of taxpayer money in my pocket. How do I do that? Well, again, I commission an art piece, an invisible art. I get some friend of mine to value it at $100,000, and then I build it for the city. I pay the artist $100,000. The artist gives me $50,000. He takes $50,000 under the table, and that's how it works. And the only ingredient for this to work is you need an army of useful idiots that say all art is subjective. Like some monkeys that are crapping down. All art is subjective. All art is subjective. All art is... Okay, yeah. Why is Domina Morgul leaving? Manufactured art is not art. I mean, this is a little bit of a controversy here. I mean, it depends what you mean by manufactured. Like, for example, a painting of Mona Lisa. Okay, is it art or not? Well, I think it's art, but I think because it can be manufactured, it's going to be affected by the supply and demand. So, because it's easy to make, easy to reproduce, you're not going to get the same value like you would get from the real Mona Lisa just by having a photo of her. Thank you, Master Dr. Vla. I appreciate the donation. Video games try to look as good and realistic as possible, while cartoons try to look as crappy as possible. Depends on the cartoon. I mean, there are some really good cartoons, especially the ones that are made by DC Comics lately. They've done Injustice and other cartoons that look good. Anime can look good. But most Western entertainment is suffering right now because no one wants to watch it. And as such, the price for making cartoons is very low, which is why they have to constantly skim on a budget. And why you get the CalArts, because CalArts is very easy to manufacture. All right. Who's affecting Domina Morgul? Stop bullying Domina. Don't bully the Domina. I gave Domina the wrench so she can bully people. She's going to bully the canned kitty now. Anyway, I gave her a wrench so I can see her better. I wanna see the drama that Domina Morgul causes. I mean, heck, I got after Kelly Miller left, I ran out of drama. So there we go. Right, let's discuss something else that's interesting. So from what I understand, this Senorita has won third place and somehow managed to make the entire event about her. I mean, if she hadn't done this, I wouldn't hear about it from Romania. Because I was reading the Romanian news and it's like, I mean, it's so shocking what she did that even the Romanian press, like over the pound in Eastern Europe, like people are talking about it, right? So the reason it's shocking, and I think I can explain it perfectly. First of all, it's very easy to get publicity nowadays by disrespecting the national anthem. Like, it's the correct thing to do. If I was an athlete, I would probably do it as well. Hell, I would probably whip my cock out and start pissing while the national anthem is playing. Why? Because the more shocking the event, the more shock you cause, and the more outrage you cause, the more you have to win. Because the mainstream media is going to masturbate over it. That's what it literally is. It doesn't really matter if you like or dislike the country. This is what you need to do to get ahead. I mean, this is the system, right? And unless you want to change the system, which most athletes, let's be realistic, they don't. Like, they just want to get money. This is how you need to play it, right? Make sure you don't insult China. Make sure you do everything right by China, because China is a country that respects itself, and they don't tolerate that shit. Not from their own citizens, and definitely not from a foreigner, which is why NBA people who criticize the United States have absolutely nothing negative to say about China. And yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Now, imagine the following. Imagine a company would support you for training and then participating into a gaming event. So let's say, I don't know, Sony Entertainment comes up to you and says, let's take a person from the chat. Let's create a little bit of an immersion. All right, Sony comes up and goes, Darna 1804. I don't know the pronoun, so I don't know if it's a she, her. I think it's a she, her, right? Darna is a woman's name. I hope I'm not. And they go like, Darna, you know what? I want you to participate in League of Legends. And we're going to pay you $100,000 for you to form a team, train. And then we're going to pay your entry fee and your transportation towards League of Legends, right? And when you go to the competition and Sony logo is playing, you show a huge amount of disrespect. You spit on the logo, you give the middle finger, you say that Sony is an oppressive company which oppresses its workers, and I don't really like Sony's business practices, blah blah blah. It's got a history of negative opinions, yada yada yada. If you did that, okay, if you pull that shit, not only would Sony sue you, well, maybe it wouldn't sue you, but it definitely wouldn't support you in the future. Like, it would withdraw all funding from you. But other companies would refuse to work with you. And probably most people that are watching this would think you're a piece of shit. I mean, okay, maybe Sony is a bad idea. Let's take Coca-Cola. Like someone would start spitting on the logo, and they would say, well, Coca-Cola did business with the Nazis in the past. It's an oppressive company, and it did this and that, and it polluted that river, and it treated those people unfairly. If you did that, like, not only would the company just pull its funding away from you, but like any other company would refuse to work for you. So why is it different when it's the taxpayer money? Like, why is it that people respect corporations and their money, but they don't respect the taxpayer anymore? And I think the answer is because the taxpayer doesn't respect themselves. That's why. I think that is the main problem. Now, as I understand, the United States doesn't actually fund people at the Olympics. But it doesn't fund them directly. Like, if you're a company and you donate money for an athlete, then you get tax cuts. So technically, it still is an incentive from the government to support certain athletes. And I think, like, if you're going to disrespect the country that you're representing, then companies that give you money shouldn't get tax cuts. Because, I mean, how can the athletes sleep at night? How can they sleep at night knowing that they're getting money from a country that they don't like? When people said art in the Middle Ages, they meant poetry. Visual arts weren't widely considered art until the Renaissance. It required extreme quality images to convince people of the value of images. Okay, so Darna opened a very interesting conversation, and I kind of disagree with her. I mean, she is kind of right, but she's also wrong at the same time. Alright, so the idea that visual art didn't really exist in the Middle Ages is true, but there's a reason for it. So before the Middle Ages, you had Greek art. And the Greeks did a lot of beautiful statues. I don't know if they did paintings. They probably didn't do paintings because at the time, the technology to have paper and to have colors was very difficult to come by. But they did a lot of beautiful statues. Like, they like to sculpt. And I think, like, they painted on vases. But like, okay. My point is that they try to replicate perfection in nature. Like, they try to replicate what they consider to be human perfection. they would look outside whenever they wanted to sculpt something. So they would look at nature and they would try to make like the most beautiful representation of what they saw. But when it comes to the Christians, so when you look at the Middle Ages, let me make sure there's no peepees in this, because when you talk about middle art, you find peepees. Okay, when you talk about the Middle Ages, the artists didn't look outside in order to create art. They looked inwards, and they looked towards ideology. So when they would draw something, it would usually, like most people that they drew were meek, right? Because humans are supposed to show piety. They're supposed to show, like bend their heads in front of divinity. And it's only when Renaissance came up that you see the beautiful paintings that Christians were capable of producing. But until then, it's just that the church was the ones in charge when it came to distributing art and making paintings. And all the paintings that came from the church, they looked very, how should I say? They look very similar, with the same type of aesthetic. And the reason for this is because of ideology, right? And it's only when Renaissance comes up that we get to see these very beautiful Christian paintings that most people remember today. Yeah, it's literally medieval CalArts. Yeah, exactly. I love the way you put it. It's medieval CalArts. I mean, look at this. Just so you can... you can understand. And the thing is, not all paintings look like this. I mean, there are a couple of medieval artists. Like, some people gave me some names, I forgot. But they look very similar to Renaissance paintings, which shows that they didn't lack the technology to have beautiful drawings. They didn't lack the ability to be able to draw good. It's just like they were completely taken aback by ideology, and that's why they were making these very... I can't say ugly, but it's very, very similar and very distorted view of the world, let's say like that. Like, I mean, humans don't look the way early Christians depicted them to look. You know, you're not going to see in Christian art, especially in the beginning, like a very muscular person, very buffed, like the same way the Greeks would make their statues. It's only when the Renaissance comes up. I think there is an exception, though. I think Jesus Christ would sometimes be depicted as more perfect in its form. Like when he's on the cross, you can see his muscles and stuff in some of the religious iconography. But it's a topic for another time. But yeah, like CalArts is definitely worse. I do agree. Like CalArts is worse than medieval art. It's definitely worse. I mean, the thing with CalArts is that it's not supposed to be beautiful or pleasant to look at. It's supposed to be serviceable. That's what CalArts is supposed to be. It's supposed to be easy to reproduce, easy to manufacture. It's the fast food of the cartoon industry. There's no other way around it. And the thing is, like, it's also very easy to teach people how to do CalArts. If you manage to teach someone how to draw CalArts, then they can draw any type of CalArts like cartoon. They can draw a Steven Universe. They can draw the one with the princess. I forgot its name. Any type of CalArts cartoon, even like the Thundercats. So yeah. Here's something else that's interesting. So there's this article which is going around freaking people up. And there's like, I'm going to be as objective as possible when discussing this, because it's a very bizarre article. So this is about a judge which has forced people to take the COVID vaccine as a condition of their terms of probation, right? So you have a person that's being accused of a crime. They go in front of the judge, and the judge says, well, if you want probation, you're going to have to take the vaccine. Now, there's a little bit more to the story. Okay, if you read the article, you're going to get a lot more from it. But there's a lot of people who don't read it, and they already agree with the judge. They're thinking like the judge is doing a good service. Like there should be more judges like him. And I was talking with a friend, like hypothetically, I was talking with a friend that I was saying, like, at this point, why not just get the military to forcefully drag people out of their homes and vaccinate them? And I was hoping, like, what I'm saying is just, like, the most bizarre shit, like, the most authoritarian stuff ever. But my friend agrees it's a good thing. And I'm thinking, like, you know what, like, yeah, why wouldn't it be a good thing? Like, if your mindset is to force people, why like, use these half measures? Why just use, like, these indirect methods of coercion? Because at the end of the day, that's what they're hoping to do, like, coerce people to do something. So just get the military, drag them out of their home, and vaccinate them. A lot simpler, right? Like, why pussyfoot around the issue? I mean, tens of millions of dollars in my country spent by the government to convince actors and artists to push for the vaccine. It's like, okay, just do it properly then. Be a man. I'm kidding, like, I don't think this should be done, but like I see a lot of people that don't really have like a red line. They don't really think, okay, well, maybe this shouldn't have been done. Like maybe this is a little bit too far. And I was just trying to see where the boundary is at. And apparently, like, the military intervening isn't a problem with them. I guess, like, maybe I should discuss the possibility. It's like, okay, what if the military then just executes the people that don't want to be vaccinated? I think, like, that was actually proposed in a country. I forgot which subscriber of mine told me that in his country, they're actually talking, like, people who don't get vaccinated might be sent to prison. And I'm thinking, like, wow, I think you're going to need more prisons then. Now, I'm by the way, I'm not making an anti-vaccine argument, heaven forbid. I'm just thinking that sometimes maybe the end doesn't justify the means. I'm just thinking, like, maybe you're taking it a little bit too far. You're like, whoa there, cowboy. Maybe think about what you're doing. But anyway, right, that's not the thing. Now, when I looked at this judge and what he is doing, it's not really that bad if you think about it, because according to him, none of the people that were going for parole offered any objections about the vaccine, like none whatsoever, none religious related, none conscientious related. Like they were just procrastinating. So the doctor went, okay, well, stop procrastinating. Okay, fine. To me, it's kind of, but like, it's not the end of the world if they weren't objecting, right? Like, if they didn't have any complaint about it, okay. If it's just like a matter of procrastination, I'm like, meh, not very happy, but it's not like, because I need to leave some space for the, if I at everything, then there might be something that I genuinely need to on, and it doesn't have the same weight. But yeah, so that's what the news was about. Like, a lot of people don't even read the news nowadays. They just look at the title. Just like Yeonmi Park said, freedom can be too painful for some. They wanted to be done in order to be told what to do. Yeah, so I noticed this under socialism. Like, a lot of people loved being controlled. See, the problem with freedom is that not all individuals like it. A lot of people just like to be told what to do. I'm kind of like one of those people. I don't really like to be the boss when I'm at work. I function a lot better if I'm given a task. Like, just give me the task, tell me what to do, and I'll do it. But there's other people that are more ambitious and they want to be the leaders and whatnot. So like, the people who want to be leaders, the people that want to be charging their life, want freedom and liberty, while the people who like to be told what to do and they don't want responsibility, they're the people that benefit the most from an organized system. Like, a lot of people say, well, we like socialism because the government would give you a job and you had that job until you died of old age. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's why the system collapsed, dumbass. But like, like, you kind of get, like, the appeal that some people have towards order and discipline, I guess. What have I done with Umatsu Obosa? I don't know. I mean, she's usually showing up to most of my streams, but I guess there's no Umatsu Obosa here today, so yeah. What if the leader just wants to kill you? Well, like most people assume that that's not going to be the case. Yeah, I mean, most people that love socialism didn't have a relative that was taken away for counter-revolutionary ideology, so there's that. Anyway, right. Let me give you a story that I found on Reddit. Like, I will take things that never happened for $10,000 type of thing. So, like every now and then you get to see on progressive subreddits things that, like, I guess it's social justice porn in a way. Like back in the day, it might have been like you go to a pub and have a drink with Father O'Malley, and Father O'Malley tells you how he rescued a kid from drowning, and you're like, whoa, that's so cool, Father O'Malley. But progressives don't do that. Like, progressives don't tell you how they saved a life or some shit. Progressives will tell you how they fixed an injustice, right? Like how they changed the world by giving the zinger, by telling you, oh, I did this and zing, But some of the stories that they tell are so ridiculous. And they get so offended if you don't believe them, as if I would believe whatever anonymous twat writes on the internet. But okay. So apparently a guy walked into the boardroom and said, "Hi, sweetheart, if you could fix me up a coffee real quick, I'm meeting with the regional reports manager in like 5 minutes. Thanks, darling." And I just stared at him and coldly said, I am the regional reports manager. And we are now 20 minutes into this board meeting, and I don't think I've ever seen a man look so embarrassed and afraid in my whole life. I mean, my God, like this story, this is why I want to become a fact checker, because it's so bizarre. Like, first of all, what the fuck is a regional reports manager? I've never heard about this job. I know about a regional director, okay, like I heard about that, but I've never, like, regional reports back. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It's just like I've never heard about something like this. But it must be such an easy job if you can write this shit during a meeting. Yeah, most people during meetings, they don't go on Reddit and write stuff. But the guy is such a stereotype, isn't it? It's like the exact type of person you would imagine a misogynist would be like. Like it fits all the categories. Like, who on earth, first of all, like who on earth goes to the workplace and just randomly picks a person without knowing anything about them? Like a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. You just handpick a person from the workplace. Can you give me a coffee? Who the fuck does that? Like, seriously, who the fuck does that? Like, no one does that. I've never encountered this, and I've been to so many workplaces. Like, at least people need to know who the fuck you are before they ask you something. I mean, you can just ask, like, someone that the company subcontracted, and it's like, dude, fuck off. Like, I'm not your employee, It's just bizarre. But the second thing is, like, we need to assume that the person is unaware that women can be in higher up positions. I mean, I think even in the 70s in the United States, women could own businesses. I just, like, find it, like, the most bizarre shit in the world. And you're looking at Reddit, and people are like, oh, yes, oh, you go, girl, you go get him, girl. And I'm like, oh, yes, and then the table started clapping after this, didn't it? My God, like, like, when you write something like this, I'm not saying people shouldn't lie on the internet, heaven forbid, okay? Like, if you want to write some emotional porn, if you want to show just how cool you were, you want to give the zinger and make up a story, at least make up something fucking believable. Like this is literally why social justice activists can't write stories, why they can't write video games, why they can't make movies, why they can't do anything, because, like, it's even in their little emotional porn, when you have to write a couple of lines in order to get a zinger, you can't do it. Jesus Christ. Like, I guess, like, this could be a really funny story. It's like a guy walks in the boardroom, tells me, hey, make me a coffee. They're like, I'm the regional reports manager. 20 minutes in, and he looks embarrassed. No, he's probably wondering, where the fuck is his coffee? He's wondering, it's been 20 minutes. Where is the coffee? And he's embarrassed because he doesn't want to scream in front of everyone else in the meeting. It's like, I asked you for a coffee. It's been 20 minutes. You're the regional reports manager. You do absolutely nothing. I work for a living. You got time to go on Reddit. You got time to go on Reddit during the meeting. At least you can do is make me a coffee. Goddamn HR inventing goddamn useless positions that no one needs. Thank you, Julie Mora. I appreciate that. I have a better story in that thread, and it's actually true. Let's see the actual true story. From the guy, which, by the way, if you don't know how fucked up Tactical Droid is, he actually went to his university suggesting that the new commercials that play on your smartphone should detect the people's eyes. So if you look at the commercial, it plays, but if you look at the other way, then the commercial stops playing. My fucking god. Like, I hope this guy doesn't get a job in anywhere with influence, because holy shit. Okay, let's see the story from Tactical Droid. How I ever told you how my mom met my dad. She was at a company for a job interview and met my dad in the elevator. My dad cracked a dad joke and my mom gave an annoyed response. Then she got in the room where her interview was going to start, and the interviewer was my dad, says Tactical Droid. Now that is a zinger. That is a zinger. Sorry for getting off the theme, but I just found out old Bill Clinton is getting out of Bill Cosby. Yeah. Bill Cosby is getting. I don't even know who Bill Cosby is. Like, if it was before my time. It was before I started making YouTube videos. I don't know who the guy is. So wait. If he's getting out of prison, does that mean that he's going to get compensation for the state for the time he was locked up? Because if you usually get out of the prison so early, it's because like the state admits they did a mistake. I'll have to look into it. Right. It is pretty funny, yeah. Tactical Droid swears it is true. Well, no, I can get it. I mean, it's not like here's the thing, right? This is the problem with social justice activists. I can't believe the story of Tactical Droid. It's like, okay, you know, like, because it happens to everyone. It happens to everyone. You like, for example, go at the university and you meet a guy in the elevator, and you know you show him a little bit of disrespect, and then you find out he's like some university professor. It can happen. You know, it can happen. Meh. But like the idea that just you're at a company and some random guy that you don't know just asks you to make him a coffee, is like, what the like that doesn't happen. Ever. Anyway, unless you're like, I don't know, in a place where everyone has like a badge or something, and you know, like they see your badge and they think you're an underling. Alright, let me show you something else. This is a Resignation. I'm just going to do the dramatic reading of the Resignation by Tom McGee, also known Program Director, Manchester School District, also known as the Temple of Equity. Human Wedgie McGee, I hereby resign as the site coordinator in light of the Frankfurt School. Manchester School District's endorsement of dehumanization of and hatred of white people, as evidenced by their discrimination of imbecile white privilege curriculum presented by the intellectual titans at Learning for Justice, an organization founded by America's eternal arbiters of truth and morality, the Southern Poverty Law Center, where senior fellow Mark Potock's office is decorated with celebratory charts of the declining percentage. Despite MSD's inability to abide by its own anti-harassment policy and the complete lack of respect and procedure, MSD is owed their return. I will honor my obligation to provide 2 weeks' notice. Surely, though, in the interest of the greater good of humanity, MSD will unburden itself of my unredeemable whiteness by exercising its discretion to excuse an employee from such a notice and relieve an employee from his or her position immediately. What? Seriously? His or her? Oh my god, just wow, I can't even. How is Manchester School District still operating on this archaic binary? Oh, where is the equity? As a trans feminine, spectrosexual, non-libidoist, Subaru Forest-based hound hybrid with a mixtape of surgical errors for genitals, I am non-binary outraged at the Manchester School District's stunning failure at inclusivity of soft, butch... I can't read these slurs. In closing, I wish the Trotsky disciples at MSD nothing but failure in their ongoing quest for civilization degradation. I leave you with the only verbal response befitting any attempt at anti-white indoctrination. Fuck you. Diversity, equitable, and inclusivity yours. Daniel Concanon. This shit went viral, by the way. Sorry for getting off the... Oh, I read this one. Michael, what you doing, Michael? Yeah, let's... Did it say with a mixtape? No, it's just like... I guess it's the resignation. When the fuck did he resign? June 28th. I'm surprised I didn't see this on Fox News, because like Fox News just latches on this shit like flies to shit. Every single time they find something like this, they don't hesitate to. Anyway, there is like some more interesting things. Like this is how equity is done right, by the way. I wanted to show you an example of equity done properly. So this is from Romania, right? From Romania. And in Romania, we got this very interesting exam after you finish... okay. I need to explain the Romanian school system a little bit before we talk about it, because Americans find it foreign. In Romania, you go to kindergarten, and once you finish, you start first grade. And you have first grade all the way to fourth. You take an exam in order to go to a prestigious high school. And then you get 5th grade all the way to 8th. You take an exam in order to go to a prestigious high school. And then it's like 9th to 12th grade. And then you take one of the most difficult exams that I took in my life, which is called BAC. And the BAC is like an exam that has math, Romanian, English, history, geography, sport. It's got like almost everything you did in your school put together, right? It's one of the most difficult exams, and with the grade you take for this exam, you can then go to a university. Now, if you have a high enough grade at this very difficult exam, then you can go to a university and do it for free. If the grade is low, then you have to pay for your university. So there's like the biggest pressure in any student's life to just study for this very, very difficult exam. And I'm telling you, I went to 2 universities. I wouldn't consider anything I did there more difficult than the BAC. Like, it's just like insanely difficult. At least the one that I took. I don't know what others take. So, because of this, a lot of parents, they pay a lot of money to tutor their students to get this exam. So, you go to school, you study 8 hours, you come home, you do the homework, another 2-3 hours. And then you're going to go to the house of a math teacher or to the house of a Romanian teacher or a geography teacher or whatever. And you're going to get tutored there for another hour or two. And the parents is probably going to pay a lot of money, like a lot of tuition fees for that service. Now, the reason I'm saying this is that the government found out that the students that get this extra tuition, they actually perform better than the ones that don't. So that is a problem of equity, right? Because you can have a kid that's impoverished and his parents can't afford the tuition, and because of that, they're going to have a more difficult job at the BAC. So this is how equity is done right. If this was in America, they would probably think about how to fuck with the parents that give their kids tuition. Like they would try to figure out a way on how to tax them more, or how to make it unreasonable and difficult for the parents to give this type of tuition, because it fucks up with equity, right? In Romania, it's the other way around. Like, the person that talks about this shit is as close as you can get to a Romanian social justice activist. Like, he's very far left. I think he's in the USR party, like the corporation party. And he says like this. He says that there is no force on earth that can prevent a parent from trying to provide the best education possible for his child. So we're not going to mess with that. Instead, what we want to do is a government program for the kids that can't afford this tuition to be able to get like some teachers that are willing to work extra at school with the kids. So in other words, if the parent can't afford to send the kid to get a tuition, then he will send them off hours at school where a volunteer teacher is going to try to give him an extra hour or a little bit more of education so that they can get past this exam. You know, and this is like literally how you're supposed to do equity properly. Like, no one is upset about this. You know, like the people that are already giving tuition to their kids, they're not upset about it. And the people that don't have money to give extra tuition to their kids, they're happy about this. Because now they get an opportunity to provide their kids with a little education, like a little bit of a heads up for a very difficult exam that's going to dictate their future. So, if I were to see equity being done this way, I swear to God, I wouldn't fucking complain. And yes, of course, you know, I'm not going to go into the fact that the teachers who give the tuition, they skim on taxes and they do it under the table. And there's a lot of discussions that the reason this exam is so difficult is exactly because of teachers like wanting to get an extra... to get more students that go to them and get these tuitions. And, you know, like, it's an entire conversation. But like, what I want to say is that I don't mind with this type of equity. Why would teachers volunteer for this? Asks Stefik. Believe it or not, a lot of teachers genuinely love their job and they love working. On top of that, it looks good on the teacher's resume. Like if let's say I'm a teacher in a rural area and, you know, I don't like the wage there. So I put a lot of work, I volunteer a lot. And then when I go to the city to work at a more prestigious high school, I show them the resume and it's like, look at the extra hours I put in. It's only got 3 things depending on your profile. For example, in the natural science profile I've been in, there was math, Romanian, blah, blah, blah. The Romanian teacher industrial complex. Yeah, it is an industrial complex. I mean, I've seen some really nasty teachers in my life. For example, there was a Latin teacher, and yes, like we studied Latin in high school, who would look at the kids that weren't doing as well because maybe they didn't like Latin or maybe they were just dumb or didn't like to study, and they would target those kids. So they would go to these kids and they would give them bad grades to the point where the kids were about to fail. And if you fail at one, I think you have to repeat all of the year again. So obviously, like, a lot of students didn't want to do that. And the teacher would approach their parents and they would say, yeah, I think your kid is a little bit dumb, but it's okay, I can fix it. You know, just send him over to my house, and for $50 an hour, I can give a little bit of a tutoring, and I can help him out. And all of a sudden, with the help of the tutoring, the grades start increasing. And a lot of teachers did this. And usually it was the teachers that were teaching the useless subjects, like things that no one gives a shit, like Latin. Let me think. Well, religion, no, not really, because they were afraid of losing their jobs. So, the chemistry teacher, I think, was doing that. English teachers would do that. Like you know, you had like some teachers that it's not. Oh, the geography teachers did that a lot. Yeah, so like they would give bad grades to some students, and then they would tell their parents, hey, if they hire me as a tutor, they'll get good grades, you know. And, yeah, tutoring means that like you would go to their house for an hour or so, or usually I think it was actually 2 hours. Yeah, you'd go to their house for 2 hours, and then you have like a one-on-one session where they would just actively talk to you and see where you don't understand and try to get you to understand that thing. But hey, you know, it helps. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, $50 in a country where the minimum wage, or sorry, the medium wage was like 300 at the time. Let's privatize all the schools and let the teachers survive on the free market. Yeah, I have like a little bit of a rant going about schools and the way the current educational system works. I honestly think that in the future they might ban homeschooling, just seeing where the trend is going. Because it used to be like schools where so you can learn a trade. Nowadays, you don't seem to learn on how on schools like how to start a business. Like if you finish a high school, you've no fucking clue on how to start the business. You've no idea on how to do taxes. You've no idea on how to write a resume. You have no idea how to apply for a job. You've no idea on how to play the stock market. Like nothing. Nothing that's actually useful is being taught in a high school. But you'll probably know about systemic racism, and you're going to know about all the things about social justice and other trivial shit. And because of that, like a lot of parents are going to consider pulling their kids out and starting to homeschool. And of course, the universities, the schools are going to be like, oh, wow, no, we can't allow that. Can't let that happen. Exams being made artificially harder for poorer kids is actually a good thing. Overproduction of elites is a bad thing. I mean, yes and no. The problem is that some kids might want to go to a trade school and they still need to pass the exam. It's not really that and it's not only that, like it's not a reason why they're making it harder. They're making it harder so that parents pay for their kids to get tuition, which in my opinion, like, yeah, okay, you may say that the side effect is good because there's less people going to universities that teach stuff which can't be integrated into the economy, but at the same time it's not really good because you get like teachers just getting money, ripping people off. For 1 year in high school, the teacher tried to encourage this. It started with a 3 and it followed up with ascolta la tavola every. Yeah. So that's exactly how they do it, Gabriel. Right? So they will ask a student something the student doesn't know. They will give him an F, and then the next class they would get him to the blackboard, ask him another question that's very difficult, give him another F. Next time they get him to the blackboard again, ask him another question, another F, and then they're like, okay, get your parents to call me. And the parent calls the teacher, and the teacher goes like, yeah, your kid is doing really poorly. Like, I mean, he's going to fail the year unless he gets some tuition. I can offer my services for like $50. It's kind of annoying because like at one point, especially if it's Latin or some shit, like the parent would probably be like, can't I just pay you and like not do it? Like can't we say we don't? Can't we do it and say we didn't? Let's just don't and say we did. Yeah. University should not be a necessity. It should be for the intellectual elite of the nation. Yeah, I agree with that, Tafik. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think like universities have managed to ingrain into people's mind that if you don't get a university, you're going to end up doing the menial job. And I'm telling you this again, if you're new to my channel, like I had 2 universities, and I also had like students that, colleagues of mine from high school that became electricians or became builders, and they earn a lot more than I do, even with YouTube. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up, But it's also like the mentality, because when I got my first job, I was doing statistics for a hospital. I was in front of the door, directing people to pay to various doctors, and when I was doing that job, I had people from med school. Sorry, not med school at the time. I wasn't doing med school. From law school, contacting me, asking me what I'm doing, and I would tell them like, hey, yeah, I got this job at a hospital, and it's like, wow, really? You're doing that? And they looked at it with disgust and disdain, because like the job that I was doing didn't require any university, right? So they look at me, oh, you're doing unskilled labor? And I'm like, motherfucker, you're unemployed. You're living with your parents. At least I get some money. At least I'm earning cash. But the fact that I was doing an unemployed job as a person who graduated the university was like a disgusting thing. Like I should hide myself behind the counter. I should be ashamed of the fact that I'm working whenever, one of my colleagues came in, and I didn't give a shit. I was like, no, I'm working, I'm doing a job. The fuck are you doing? In the United States, university is quickly becoming a joke, except for law and medicine. Government wants good little sheep who bow on command. Truly critical thinkers are dangerous, and freedom is just a mere thought. You don't need full freedom, it's hard. Yeah, it's not just the government. I notice corporations want the same political define. I mean, look at YouTube, right? When is the last time YouTube came up with something original? Like, name me an original feature that YouTube came up with. Like, the last original feature was the super chats. There's no more innovation. Their only innovation is how to fuck with the algorithm. That's it. But like, Google Hangouts, which in my opinion was an excellent way of streaming because you just clicked the button and it worked, they got rid of that. You look at all the major corporations, there's no more innovation. And I think the reason they don't innovate is because they don't want creative people. Like, creative people don't fit in the mold. They need people that obey. They need people that follow. They don't need another James Damore. They need people that just do what they're told. And the people that do what they're told, they're not good at innovating. They're not good at creating new things. At building stuff. Same with the video game industry. Every single video game that's coming up is something that you feel like you've played before. If it's not a sequel, it's not a prequel, it's not a reimagining, it's something that you've played before. I mean, look at Far Cry. Okay, Far Cry comes up and you got like this game where you're running around the map and doing quests and climbing towers. Assassin's Creed does exactly the same shit. Like, they rip off Far Cry. Like, there are so many Far Cry clones where you just go around the map and then you get like to a quest point, you start the quest, you then need to go climb a tower or something to reveal more of the map. And maybe you get like some side activities like hunting and stuff to upgrade your character. But I remember when I was a kid, like there were just games were so different one from another. I mean, you get the Vikings where you have like 3 original characters and it's a puzzle platformer, which is completely different than Lemmings, where you have like some Lemmings that are just moving forward and falling in a cliff and you gotta like build stuff in order to convince them not to. Completely different to... what was it? Alien Carnage. I mean, XCOM was like, when I was a kid, I don't even think there were genres back in the 80s. Like, every single game was so different than the others. I mean, you had like a couple of genres that kind of told you what it's about. But overwhelmingly, like, most games were so fundamentally different to one another because they were so original. We don't have democracies, we have guerrilla dictatorships run by corporations. Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I think Switzerland is actually a good democracy. There are a couple of democracies in the world. The thing is, like, I don't know if things were always like this, or maybe it's like the social media aspect of it that accelerated, allowed the journalists to realize that they can operate as a class and push for political change. I don't know. Let me look at the chat, see what you guys are saying. Man, like, I'm glad I only have 300 people watching. Like, I don't know how people like Destiny manage to look at the chat when the chat just flies by. XCOM is basically a genre now with all the copies. Yeah, no, I agree. But like at the time, it was original. I gotta say, like, Phoenix Point, despite being, I guess like an XCOM clone, is kind of original. Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 were not Far Cry. No, I was talking about Assassin's Creed, like 4 or 5 and the ones that came after. That they started becoming like Far Cry, the same principle. The 90s were definitely calmer and more free. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. It's been 1 hour, so we're going to end it here. It's a lot of people ask me, well, V, why just an hour? Why don't you stream more? It's like, well, I don't really have anything else to say. I mean, I went through all the news. And if I were to just keep this going, I would probably bore you guys because I don't have anything left to talk about. If you want, you can send me news on Twitter. Like, my DMs are open, so you can send me stuff there. And yeah, life is objectively getting better. People have a negativity bias on in the now. Yeah, I kind of agree with Abdi. Okay, I'll make a parenthesis. And I said this before. All right, I rather live in the now than live in the past. I mean, I'm in Romania. I haven't experienced any major conflict. So Romania hasn't been invaded. There's no war that's going on here. I haven't experienced famine like my grandparents did or my parents. I haven't experienced any major disease, and I know like people will say, well, what about COVID? No. I mean like the yellow fever or some shit like that. You know, the Spanish flu, like something where you go out and you see bodies everywhere. So I haven't experienced that. People don't really get disappeared for ideological takes. I mean, you can get fired, but they're not going to put you in a camp somewhere in Siberia. So, you know, like all in all, I can't complain. I mean, despite all of the negativity, despite all of the bad things that definitely can be improved, I can't say that I have a bad hand because I've been born in the current year. Right? Like, I would rather be born now than be born in the past. Well, tactical droid, highest depression rates in history. I'm not fucking depressed. I mean, if you're depressed, that's on you, you know? Just cheer the fuck up. What can I say? But I'm telling you as a person, and by the way, I would rather be depressed than be in a trench in World War II. I would rather be depressed than have the Russians invading. Right? I would rather be depressed than live like my grandmother used to live with the electricity cutting off every second and the water being cold and freezing during the winter. Equating material comfort with happiness is absolute metaphysical rubbish. No, it's not. If you want to live the time of my grandmother, when you could starve to death, or when you could just freeze to death in your own home because there was no water, I mean, you know, like, knock yourself out. If that's what brings you happiness, good. I'm not like you, I guess. I'm an evil person that's just happier to live in the now than in the past. It started getting bad when corporations started to use psychological studies to manipulate people. Yeah, I pretty much agree with you, but I don't know why they haven't done it up till now. I mean, I think like corporations always use psychological studies to manipulate people. Like, what do you think is when you go to the store and you see like a product costing $4.99 or $3.99? That's psychological manipulation right there. I'm not depressed either, but apparently your argument is false. Dude, are you literally telling me that you'd rather live in World War II or you'd rather live under communism than under now? No explanation, just yes or no. Would you rather have lived under Ceausescu in Romania than live today? I'm legitimately curious. No, stop typing. Yes or no, that's it. If you're not saying yes or no, I'm not taking your answer. Because that's my point. I'm rather happier to live now than live in the past. Can't think of any recent time period that my mother or my grandparents lived in that I would have loved to live then rather than now. I don't know how it is like for Americans though. Like for Americans, maybe it's different. Like maybe the past for you was a lot better. I mean, I guess. Okay, well, I don't know, Tactical Droid. I'm glad I don't live during World War II. What can I say? Jesus fucking Christ. But if hey, you know, if you like communism, socialism so much, I guess you can go to other places in the world that have it right now. You know, there's nothing stopping you. I mean, especially if you're an IT guy, you can go into China. Or North Korea. Well, probably not North Korea because they probably don't hire IT guys. But you can go into China. You know, nothing stopping you. You couldn't get fat 30 years ago. Think about that. My God. Like, I'll show you one more thing before I leave, okay? So, there's a famous picture. This is from a circus. Hold on, let me just snip this so I don't get accused by YouTube for doing harassment. Feel free to fact check this because it's very interesting. Like when I saw it, it blew my mind. But so this is Nelly Lane, circus freak, world fattest woman, 1922. It blew my mind when I saw it. I was like, holy crap, you know, like really, like this, this wasn't a certain, like people paid money. Okay, it was consensual, by the way. Like she consented to this, but like people would look at this, it's like, oh my god, that is the world fattest woman. And compare it to today. It takes time for corporations to change the bureaucracy thing. The level of manipulation is increasing if they can print news they want, even if it's contradictory to reality. So the thing that I understand with corporations and how it works, you know, like the far left usually says, oh, well, corporations have straight male CEOs and they have like a disproportional position of power or whatever. The reality is that the main power in a corporation isn't with the people in charge. It's usually with the HR. Like if you were to have like some really rabid Christians that are taking part of the HR and they get to decide who they hire, who they fire, who they promote, what the company policy is, then the companies would look very different than they do now, right? So in reality, it's the people in HR that get to decide a lot of things in a company. And they set the tone. Now, from what I understand in California, if you have like more than, I think it was like 20 employees, like I might be wrong on this, but if you have a certain number of employees, you have to have an HR. Like the government forces you by law to have an HR. And the problem is that you can't just hire anyone for an HR. You need to hire a person that finished a university and has a license and a degree to show that they're in an HR. So in other words, like the company indoctrination gets to be forced. Like you need to basically have the HR, which is then going to hire people that are progressives. And if you behave in a non-progressive manner, then the people start walking out, then the people start protesting, blah, 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 blah. And they fuck up your company. So yeah. Would this consider fat shaming? No, I'm not shaming her for being fat. I'm just pointing it out that only recently we get to see like people being able to get overweight, which is because of capitalism, right? Like it's an abundance of plenty, I guess. I complain about today, V, but very appreciative to live today because AC, baby, when it's hot, I can be cool. Cars versus walking, technology versus libraries and talking. Hey, I'm in California and giving dollars to a Romania. Oh my God, you're in California, get the fuck out of there. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I would not want to live in any other time period, and it's not just because of AC and whatnot. It's just it's a lot more safe now. Like, my God, I can't imagine how it's like to be sent to the trenches during World War. Holy shit. But anyway, right? Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, especially the people that donated super chats. I really enjoy it. If you like this, then tune in again tomorrow, probably same hour. I'll do this a daily thing, like 8 p.m. Romanian time. I'll upload the video on my main channel, and then I'll do a live stream here right after the main video. So thank you guys for watching. If you have interesting news that you want me to talk about, contact me on Twitter. My DMs are open. I respond to everyone. I'm interested in seeing interesting